Then I bailed out and landed in that Yangtze River. And you can't climb out of that canyon like they can the Hood River because the mountains are too steep. You got to go to the end of the river, as I recall it. One time, well, that time I bailed out into the river where I was coming back down and come around a bend. There was a Japanese patrol in there. And I couldn't figure out a way to get past them. I found some rice reeds, and I picked a bunch of them there, and I had a kind of a rubber band that I put in my leg. I figured there was going to be a problem getting past this thing, so I cut these reeds and put them under this little rubber band on my leg. And when I come around the corner, I figured, well, the Indian stopped me how to put a rock on my chest and lay on my back, and I inhale while it lift me off the ground. I could travel about 4 lengths of my body. So I put that reed in my mouth, and we come on down the river. And pretty soon these Japanese, they found out that I was something out there. They didn't know what it was. But I had a pretty good angle on it, and the bullets, they was trying to shoot this reed out of my mouth. That's the way I got by one of them. So
you were actually in the water? Is that how you did it? You got
I was underneath the water. Yeah, I'd breathe through that reed, and I'd inhale, and I'd travel about 3 lengths of my body, and then I'd exhale, and I'd go back to the bottom. But you can't do that on the deep channel. You got to stay on the sandy beach close to, I guess there's about 1.5 feet underwater, but I was quite a ways from them before they seen something was going down. Well, I had to go on down. Of course, I had to go on down to the end of the canyon. You can't climb out like you can here. You can come out, get out of the hood, get out of the canyon here and walk over to White Salmon. You can get out on this side and go over to Mount Hood, but you couldn't get out of that canyon. It's too steep, And then these girls, there was another set of girls picked me up there.
Some girls found you. I mean,
Yeah.
How did you find them? Did they see you?
They were watching for American GIs, and they was watching the Japanese who were trying to corner us. And so,
And then,
those girls really were brave girls because they'd come out there with hardly anything but a knife they carried in their on their body, and I wondered about them because there was a lot of them killed. The Japanese were mad at them. They do everything they could, and some of those girls really went through hell to help us out. But they still stayed there and brought us out to the base.
so the girls would take you and hand you off to somebody else.
Yeah, well, yeah, they'd get us back out of there because they more or less knew their area, but they'd pass us on to another group, and this other group would take us on, and pretty soon we'd end up at a base somewhere. And
When they handed you off, were you walking or riding a horse or riding a car? Or was it a lot of walking?
it's all walking. And you couldn't run a machine or something. The guys that come back with me, I didn't allow them to make any rackets or anything. And by the time they walked very far with me, I'd had them. We'd find something and make moccasins or something so there wouldn't even be a shoe print. We couldn't walk barefooted because some of that country is not adapted to it. And that yellow gumbo mud was the worst stuff I ever run into in my life. And no matter where you went, if it was dry, you had to breathe the stuff. And if it was wet, you couldn't get it off your foot. It was, I guess it was a Chinese proverb, whatever. anyway, well, we got down, when we got down to that, I don't know, that's what they call the thing there, but it's right close to where that dam is. These two girls, they come running around a bend, and I told one of the boys, I said, you better keep quiet. Let's sit down here and be quiet, and we'll see what happens, because I think they're trying to contact us, but they had to be careful too, because if they make it by trying to hoop and holler or anything, well, then the Japs would get in on them and us. So. But it was quite fascinating to watch those girls work. Most of them were college girls and pretty sharp on many different things. They'd studied many different vocations, and with them all working together, they got a lot of us boys back out. Well, the most that ever come back from the plane, I told them that we would have to drop down to probably the maximum of 3 and try to get out. But I said, you go spend a bunch of people along, and no matter where you are, you got to cut it down to about 3, and each one of you pick the leader of that group and then go back to the base. And that's what I told everybody that was with me. And of course, they found that I could boil water in birch bark and stuff like that the Indians taught me how to do. And you can make tea where everybody else would burn their cup up. They couldn't. You can't drink tea out of a burnt cup, you know. The Indians taught me how to use birch bark to make a cup, and you can drink tea with it, and as long as you keep the side of it wet and all that. There's many different things that I got from the Indians that helped me get back. So, and a lot of the boys, those boys that come back with me had it a lot better, because most of them are city boys, and they had no idea how to survive, even with the military training. Some of the stuff that it make you kind of wonder how anybody ever got anywhere. But I was just lucky. I was able to be tested before I got into all of this. Anyway, I got through that one, and that's one of the most difficult problems I had, I guess.